Everything is riddled with risks and driven by profit. The oil industry, the car industry, the fucking electricity industry, the nuclear industry, the aerial industry, like every fucking industry is riddled with risks for profit. I'm judging already. Let's watch what craziness is Russell Brand saying this time. Is it going to be something bad about COVID, something bad about the left, is something good about Putin like he always does? He likes to say good things about Putin and bad things about Ukraine. So let's see what our good pal Russell Brand has in store this time.
The company that may have caused the global pandemic through their experimentation on bat coronaviruses have been given more money to experiment on bat coronaviruses. Is that what you want?
Thank you for choosing Fox News.
No, here's the fact news.
Hello there, you 6 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining us on this voyage towards...
That sounds like a cult, though, when he says 6 million awakening wonders. Like, he's saying that everybody who's subscribed to him is, like, awake. I'm not asleep, and I'm not a subscriber. No, I'm actually a subscriber, yeah, because I want to know what fuckery he's going to talk about next. But I don't believe a word he's saying, though. So, maybe my eyes are closed. My third eye or something.
I hope you will join us as well over on Rumble, where we stream every single day at these times for 1 hour, where we take a deeper look at the stories you will not hear on the news, as well as making jokes about stuff that is on the news, where we have...
And also making stuff up. Not just making jokes, making stuff up.
Guests that they won't allow on mainstream media, where we hopefully ask questions and answer questions that you will not see anywhere on the mainstream. Join us there every day, Monday to Friday. But also subscribe here and turn on your notification bell here. We'll continue to put these videos here, but the content goes up first and it goes up live on Rumble every day. Now, what did we learn during the pandemic? One thing I learned is it's definitely a good idea to do gain-of-function research in laboratories in Wuhan on what happens if you take a disease in a bat and make it much, much worse. That we need to do more of for sure. Maybe it came from a wet market, maybe it came from a laboratory. There is no conclusive evidence, and I'll let you know why there isn't any conclusive evidence in a minute in this story. It's going to knock your little socks off. One thing we could perhaps be a little circumspect about is giving additional funding to the very bodies that may have caused the last coronavirus pandemic, pending evidence that is currently being withheld. Let's get into this startling story. This is exactly the kind of story we need to bring you. Questions that are posed here are the very questions that, if they remain unanswered, leave out in the open for us all to see the hypocrisy, potential...
Okay, this is the problem with today's social media, especially like figures like Russell Brand. They are not waiting for if it's legit or not. They are not waiting if the story is true they've heard, or if it's a complete lie. They need to be first. Not accurate, not right, they need to be first.
Potential collaboration and lack of transparency of organisations like the NIH, the US government, Big Pharma, the mainstream media. This story shows you all of it. Don't take my word for it though. Here it is. You decide. Let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments what you think. US health officials have...
Oh wow! The person who says that you can't trust big media refers to another big media. Who would have known? Daily Mail is this time the big media company. How can anybody take this seriously? Like, he contradicts himself in every video.
Have given a controversial research organisation another $650,000 grant to experiment on COVID-like viruses, despite fears that similar risky work may have actually sparked the pandemic. Is this a place where democracy could be at work? Would you like to be given the opportunity to vote on whether or not you, in particular you, care about if there's ongoing gain-of-function research? Because they'll have an argument.
Gain-of-function research isn't the one that they are doing. They are technically just... This is the thing they do with viruses, and they have done that for like years and years. They fuck around with viruses to figure out if there's going to be an even worse branch, and then they try to figure out the cure. Unfortunately, this time we don't know for sure, it may have spread it from the lab, but majority of the time, people don't even know about those. Because they are like really safe. But the one time they fuck up, people know. But majority of the time when they fuck up, they don't even know.
For it, won't they? They go, no, we're doing it because in case in the future there was ever a pandemic like this, we would possibly have a vaccine for it. Yeah. Well, the thing is, you might cause a pandemic while doing it. Yeah, but we'll have a vaccine for it. So, because it makes it look like the motivation is financial rather than health-oriented. You cannot have a health...
Well, it depends on how you look at it. You can look at it that they are manufacturing a new virus that they can benefit, or you can look at it that they are playing around with the viruses to make vaccines so people won't die in the future. It's a state of mind. Either you're a pessimist, or you're an optimist, or you're a realist, or whatever. There's like always more sides to the coin. And apparently Russell Brand, I thought he was an optimistic guy, but apparently he's just thinking about bad things for everybody. Like, he doesn't know for a certain, but for a certain he knows. He's not saying, but he's saying. He doesn't know for a certain, but certainly he knows, for some reason, that they are trying to gain money.
Industry and a pharmaceutical industry that's goals are predicated on financial outcomes. Otherwise, what you'll get is a warped system where people do irresponsible and risky things in the pursuit of profit. That's what I think. A way of regulating that could be assemblies of ordinary people like you, like me, regulating and voting. Eco Health Alliance, it's ecological, it's healthy, it's an alliance. Is it ecological? Well, yeah, we get bats and that and do experiments on them. Okay, is it healthy? Is there an alliance? There's certainly an alliance, all right. Run by British zoologist Peter Daszak, funded studies in Wuhan on manipulated coronaviruses. Such research, known as gain of function, can see viruses deliberately engineered to become more dangerous to humans. What's not to love about that? Do you know what I don't like about this virus? That it's contained to bats. I don't like that. That's what I don't like. Make it more dangerous and have people get it. Oh, bloody hell, that seems like the last thing we'd...
That's not what it said, though, was it? Why is he making stuff up?
Well, depends what business you're in. The grant was awarded on September the 21st.
Oh, now we've changed news sources. The Intercept. I haven't heard about that, so that could actually be outside the big media. Probably owned by the BBC or something.
And is titled Analysing the Potential for Future Bat Coronavirus Emergence in Myanmar, Laos and Vietnam.
Or maybe just this news outlet is supporting Russell Brand's narrative. That's more likely the answer for that. That this news source is more likely to like continue the narrative that there's something bad happening than the Daily Mail. Which we can actually go and read that article after this.
Depends what business you're in. The grant was awarded on bat gain of function research. Don't worry about that. They're good as gold, them lot. They've got a great history. Watch that fish. Oh my God. Oh God. There's coronavirus noise coming out of its dirty bum. What's that armadillo thing in a cage? This market is disgusting. The new grant comes despite an open congressional investigation into
NIH awards the grant to U.S. organization at Center of COVID-19 lab leak controversy.
The organization, which has...
Okay, we need to go and check those now. The justification for the grant says the previous research in the field identifies the border region of southern China, Myanmar, Laos and Vietnam as high risk for future emergence for novel coronavirus and the potential sites where SARS-CoV-2 will spill over from bats to people. So the reason why he started citing this is actually that they have like a noble cause for the research and they just swapped it to the Intercept.
Stinking wet market until we found books contained information that might lead you to... Part of an earlier grant to Eco Health Alliance, telling the House Oversight Committee that the organisation had refused to turn over laboratory notebooks and other records as required. Why would they refuse to hand over laboratory notebooks and other records as required? And if it's a requirement, just do it. Oh, you thought that those notebooks contained information that might lead you to conclude that our experiment led to the outbreak of this pandemic? Those notebooks were planned for a surprise party for your birthday, which we were going to hold down that stinking wet market until we found out how dirty it was and full of coronaviruses. Well, there'll be no surprise birthday party now. Forget about those notebooks. You're just like your father. The NIH has requested
Like, okay, I have to say that Russell Brand is starting to look like a complete fucking lunatic when it comes to Corona, like COVID-19. Like, why the fuck do you act like that? Is that supposed to be funny, though? NIH has requested on 2 occasions that the EHA provide NIH the laboratory notebooks.
Requested on 2 occasions that
From the
EHA
research
provide
conducted.
NIH the laboratory notebooks and original electronic files from the research conducted at WIV, that's the Wuhan Institute of Virology. To date, the WIV has not provided these records, the NIH wrote to the committee. Why not? If you ask, listen, we're a bit worried about that pandemic and everything, you know, when everyone in the world had their life ruined and that, except for, I suppose, it was good for billionaires and for the pharmaceutical, but aside from that, that's irrelevant. Most people, like grandparents dying, not being able to see babies born in hospital, economic opportunities, ruin of business, inability to travel, all that stuff. Just wondered if you could help us, because, you know...
I don't know how, like, doesn't Russell Brand know that that's basically, if there's a global pandemic like we had, that's the outcome of it. If we want to survive, like, imagine another Black Plague coming, where there's no fucking survival, there's no cure, and the mortality rate is much higher. This fucker will go on and protect, like, okay, it's gonna ruin our business opportunities, our livelihoods, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's a fucking deadly virus. It's easy to judge how the world reacted in hindsight. I think the world reacted like it was supposed to act, as a matter of fact, a little bit too slow, given how much knowledge we'd had at that time, at 2020. Like, through January to, I don't know, August of 2020. I think the world did a great job. It could have done better, but it did a great job. And people who say otherwise are fucking assholes.
It came from Wuhan and that, and we're pretty sure it came from that disgusting wet market, pooey. But could we have a look at your notebooks and files and that, as you are required to give us? No! Right, well, God, I can't think of any real reason why you wouldn't do that. Well, never mind. Here's some more grants. Why don't you do some more research for us? Be more careful this time, eh? Within weeks of terminating the Wuhan lab funding,
Like, he says that this is the same thing as the last video. He says something, but he doesn't mean it because he can get trouble by saying it. He said just previously. He actually believes that it came from the lab, but because he doesn't have evidence for it, he makes jokes like that. God fucking damn it, I hate that.
NIH
But we were still watching his
What's the
videos
point of
then.
taking away their grant and then giving it back to them again? It's not a back and forth relationship. Don't give them any more grants. You know what they're doing with those grants, don't you? They're messing around with back coronaviruses. You know what's just happened? You looked out your window lately.
No, they are actually researching, like it said in the Daily Mail article, if Russell Brand would have read it to the end, that they are actually researching the people who live near those areas where the next COVID, the SARS-CoV-2 could spread out. And they are researching the bat population, they are researching the bat population and the human population and like testing them all the time and trying to like figure out how to prevent that from spreading. So they are actually doing work against SARS-CoV-2 from spreading again. But this asshat didn't read the article to the end because it was against his narrative, and the narrative is it was from the lab, Big Pharma did it for profit. That's basically it. Do I know it wasn't from the lab? No, I didn't. But can I prove it was? No, I can't. So I'm not going to insinuate it was from the lab.
The aim of the new research is to identify areas of potential concern for future pandemic emergence in order to help public health authorities suppress an outbreak before it breaks containment. Well, that's what they were doing last time. The problem is the rewards for them are extremely high. Evidently, look who did well in the last pandemic. And the risks, they're not punished for anyway because they're not being forced to release the files which could lead to proof of culpability. So that's why those things are happening, it seems to me. Let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments if you agree. But the process of performing the research introduces the risk of sparking an outbreak that would not otherwise have occurred, a concern highlighted by The Intercept last year. And also,
that is actually the same shit they're saying in the Daily Mail. Is The Intercept just like a copy of the Daily Mail? Like, I think that's plagiarism.
In the world. Like,
the text is almost identical
what
they have in the Daily Mail.
What would happen if you deliberately make bat coronaviruses more infectious? It potentially could be that. We're withholding the files. It also could have come from that lab leak. There's no certain conclusions yet. Well, to reduce the risk, stop doing those experiments. Yeah, but then what if there is a pandemic? Then we'll have a vaccine ready. Yeah, but then there will be a pandemic because you're causing them. Allegedly.
Oh my fucking god, this is disgusting.
Virtually every
That doesn't really help.
those experiments.
Because Russell Brand has said throughout the video, insinuating again, I'm saying, not saying, the bullshit he does. I'm not saying, I'm just saying that Big Pharma created COVID SARS-2 to gain profit. And now he said it again like the 5th time in the video.
Yeah, but then what if there is a pandemic?
And
we'll
then
have
he
a
decided
vaccine
to
ready.
make this.
Yeah, but then there will be a pandemic because you're causing them. Allegedly.
This bullshit. This doesn't take anything away because you have said it already 5 times and doesn't have this one up there. And he actually do believe it. Apparently.
Virtually every part of the work of outbreak prediction can result in an accident.
Of fucking course it can result in an accidental infection. It's just like when you work in, I don't know, if you're an electrician, working with electricity can cause you an electric fucking shock. Working with fire can cause burns. Working with cars, there's also risks there. Working outside, you may be eaten by a bear. Working with viruses, there might be infections. Might be. As I stated previously, we only hear the ones they fuck up really bad. We don't hear the smaller fuck ups. There's bound to be smaller fuck ups every fucking week. But they are so secure and safe that we don't hear about them. If they come from the lab, which I still highly doubt, but I don't have proof of that. But this is a dumb argument.
Accidental infection. Ridden with risk. It's riddled and strewn with risk. Right, first of all, let's get the bat. Oh, fucking thing bit me.
No, this is a fucking odd strawman he's doing. There's risk also in nuclear power, but it's still the best form of power, form of creating energy. And also, the risks are really fucking low. Just like when you're playing with viruses, there are risks, but the risk is really fucking low. And with both of those things, when things go fucking awful, people die. Just like if you have a nuclear plant blowing up, or if you have a virus breakdown, people might die. But they are 99.999 times safe.
Right, now let's make it a bit more infected with coronavirus. Oh, gee, little bug.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
Was popped to the wet market, gets a little fish sandwich. It's disgusting it. Oh, bloody, I'll get out of here before I catch something. Right, better transport this back to laboratories all around the world. Oh, stop, will you? Stop coughing. What's wrong with you? It's as if your virus has got one. It's the whole thing is ridden with risk and driven by profit. That's where...
Everything is riddled with risks and driven by profit. The oil industry, the car industry, the fucking electricity industry, the nuclear industry, the aerial industry, like every fucking industry is riddled with risks for profit. Even this one. But majority of the time, those industries, even fucking oil industries, manage the risks pretty well. Although there are more oil spills that actually does harm for the planet than there is virus outbreaks. But you don't hear Russell Brand talking about that for some reason again.
Systemic problems underwrite the practical realities of potentially what caused this pandemic. And also...
I can tell you why Russell Brand isn't talking about the oil companies. Again, his fan base is like basically riddled with right-wing people. And one thing they love more than anything, more than their country and religion, is cars, oil and gas. In that order.
I think more generally, warped ideologies within pharmacology. It shouldn't be profit-driven to the degree that it leads to irresponsibility, where it leads to drugs being marketed that are unreliable, where it leads to experimental procedures that are unnecessarily...
Well, the point is like, people are saying that the vaccines we got in the early stages of COVID weren't like tested, which is true. We didn't have time to test them. Well, not we, but like... World Health Organization, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson and Moderna didn't have time to test them properly because, well, People were dying, people were getting infected. We needed something. Now there should be no reason why they aren't tested well. And one thing I agree is like they should be held accountable if something goes wrong. If there's like side effects or something, the pharma companies should pay for the cause. But they are not liable, which is completely fucking wrong. But in the face of pandemic, you don't really have time for research because people will die. So you have to do everything much quicker than you normally would.
Risky. And if you start to say, well, unnecessarily risky is a sort of subjective term, how about incorporating someone other than self-contained regulatory bodies into the mix, into the conversation, into the process? Wouldn't you like a say in whether this happens? That's off the table. No one's asking you if you think they should give grants to these people. I'll tell you what I think. They shouldn't. They shouldn't give them any more grants. They should stop that process. That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments. I really enjoy this guy's videos. He's brilliant, isn't he? But wouldn't you like even more of him? As you know, we are streaming every day on Rumble. Day free as fuck. There's a link below to join. Even with the best of intentions, which I don't think they have. So
again, insinuating that Big Pharma and the companies that's testing the viruses and experimenting with them and trying to figure out a preemptive, let's call it a preemptive strike against the viruses, which they are being criticized that they didn't preemptively think that this could happen. He's insinuating that, well, they are bad guys and they want only bad things.
Scientists can serve as vectors for the viruses they hunt, and as a result, their work may put everyone else's lives on the line along with their own. The new grant proposes to collect samples of viruses from wildlife and then rapidly supply viral sequences and isolates for use in vaccine and therapeutic development. Oh yeah. Likely meaning that the researchers could ship live viruses around the world. Bloody hell, they can't even look...
Yeah, like they are not... Okay, they are not shipping the viruses like, I don't know, in a fucking... like a canister they are walking around with. There are really fucking tight, secure procedures on transporting hazardous material. They do that all the time. For example, the anthrax. Imagine, there are like shipments of anthrax going around the world as we speak. And people doesn't get that. They ship nuclear waste. They ship like nerve gases and shit. And we don't die because they have really secure safety measures of shipping hazardous things. So there's no point on criticizing that they will ship viruses. All live viruses, every fucking virus is a live one. If it's the dead one, it's not, well, you don't really call it a virus then.
Look after it in one lab in Wuhan without kicking off a global pandemic. Allegedly. You don't have them shipping the stuff all over the globe, do you? Them clumsy clots that are unaccountable that won't give over their notebooks. There's private things in there. Oh, I've written a poem about my boyfriend. There's pictures of what I like to do at bedtime in there. Fuck off. It's disturbing that additional funding continues to be awarded for the same high-risk research that may have caused the current pandemic before there's been a national investigation of the origin of the current pandemic. If only just had a pandemic, don't cause another one, said Richard E. Bright, a molecular biologist with the Waxman Institute at Rutgers University, referring to EcoHealth's multiple ongoing grants. It is disturbing that additional funding continues to be awarded to a contractor that the NIH has reported to have repeatedly and seriously violated contractual terms and conditions of a grant. If you keep violating a contract, don't give them any more contracts. The lack of specific lab records pinpointing a specific accident or mutation that led to the emergence of the novel coronavirus has been used as evidence to discount the possibility of a lab origin. But without access to the records in question, such evidence is unattainable. You've got no evidence at all that I've done a poo down my pants. Would you mind if I had a look in your pants? What are you implying? Well, I can smell something. In early February 2020, many of the scientists who today are the most vocal advocates of a natural origin theory joined a conference call with Dr. Anthony Fauci. Fauci, I've heard of him. And then NIH head Francis Collins. Ahead of the call and in notes afterwards, they expressed varying degrees of concern that the virus may have originated in a lab. Fauci and Collins, who controlled a large portion of the global funding streams for scientific research, discouraged the pursuit of the theory. Why? Why would they discourage the pursuit of that theory? What harm could it do? What have they got to lose?
No, the original reason was they need to focus on the spreading at hand back then. Then when the spreading was like a bit more controlled, then they still like avoided the subject of a possible lab outbreak. That's suspicious. The initial one wasn't, because there was a pandemic that was spreading like wildfire, and they needed to focus on that one. That's the reason why they said that we shouldn't focus on where it started. We should focus on how to contain it, which is actually like a good thing to do, because you don't have that much time. As we all know, like January was okay in Europe, February wasn't, and all hell broke loose after that. So it spread really fucking rapidly.
As scientists thoroughly investigating what would seem to be one of the most significant areas of scientific inquiry in modern memory. Vanity Fair reported in June of last year that Daszak personally organised...
New York Post, which is owned by one of the biggest persons in media, which is considered to be big media. And this guy who is against big media is again quoting them. Why? Because it fits his narratives. He's a fucking joke.
Organised a February 2020 statement signed by 27 scientists and published in the influential British medical journal The Lancet, almost as if he had a vested interest in one particular outcome and one particular narrative, which for a while became the dominant narrative. At the beginning, you might not remember this anymore, at the beginning of the pandemic, you literally couldn't say this. I know I'm saying this with some little dumb Wikipedia thing below me right now. If you're watching it on YouTube, watch it on Rumble, they won't have one. But at the beginning, you couldn't even say it. That's censorship. Why? Was that censorship? Do you think that, oh no, we don't want your nan getting a cough? What? How does that help? Misinformation. What? Is it also possible that you're protecting corporate and financial interests at a global level, and that you have alliances between big tech, big business, big media and government? Is that a possibility? No. This is about your nan's cough.
Do you have proof?
Off. Oh yeah, thanks. Thanks for that. Do some more coronavirus research, because I'm so concerned about my nan's cough. Obviously you are. Let's get that research done. The statement, which deplored the lab leak idea as a conspiracy theory, included the signatures of 6 scientists who had either worked at or been funded by EcoHealth Alliance. Conflicts that, along with Daszak's ties to the Wuhan lab, were not disclosed. We should tell you, by the way, that we all work at that lab and 6 of us are funded by that lab. But here's our opinion, our unbiased opinion. It's not coming from that lab. It's come from that stinking, dirty little wet market. The lengthy report published in Vanity...
I don't know why Russell Brand is so against the wet market theory, because wet market is studied quite a lot, and China actually lifted the ban of like endangered animals. Like bat was on a banned list after MERS broke free, and bat wasn't allowed to sell in the Wuhan wet markets. But the ban was lifted in 2019, I think. Ironically, the next year, the corona pandemic started. So the theory of the Wuhan wet market is actually more plausible than the lab one. But I'm not saying, like, because I don't have evidence enough about the lab one. There is a lot of evidence about the wet market. But there isn't enough evidence that it didn't come from the lab, because they were investigating the same fucking strand of virus. Published in Vanity Fair based on dozens of...
Based on dozens of interviews and more than 100,000 leaked internal documents.
Oh, we're again citing Daily Mail.
Detailed how EcoHealth operated in a world of murky grant agreements, flimsy oversight, and the pursuit of government funds for scientific advancement, in part by pitching research...
This is fun that he's like jumping between... articles. He's going back to this one. This was the original one we were reading. Then we jumped into the Intercept. Then we jumped into the New York Post. And now we're jumping back here. He's like skipping parts of the Daily Mail article, because it was actually saying the real thing they're trying to do, which is preemptively study the virus, that it's not going to leak, not going to like spread again. And they can contain it and start developing
of steeply escalating risk. Well, whether it's steeply escalating risk, murky grant agreements, or flimsy oversights, the EcoHealth Alliance is the company you want in control of very, very risky coronavirus pandemic-causing potentially research. I don't think that. I think that they shouldn't be given grants ever again, and that those notebooks and files should be handed over. But that's just...
But he doesn't see a risk there. Okay, I'm gonna use Russell Brand's own logic against him. He sees a risk of a company experimenting with viruses, like fucking around with it, to make cures and see which brand it can like mutate to preemptively have a cure or a plan against it. He sees a risk on doing that because it can spread. That's possible. There's a 0.000001% chance of it leaking. That's a possibility, I understand. But he doesn't see a risk of giving Putin and Russia parts of Ukraine that has no business of belonging to Russia because Russia is threatening with a nuclear weapon. He doesn't see a risk there, which is more than like 50% compared to like under 1% risk of virus spreading from professionals who are handling viruses compared to Putin and Russia. If they get their way by threatening nuclear weapons, what stops them from using that threat again against other nations? And again, those parts of Ukraine don't belong to Russia. Russia has no say. But he doesn't see a risk in there. Why? Because he's a shield to Russia. That's why. He has probably some interest in Russia. Well, he has probably some interest in MAGA and right-wing people who have interest in Russia. So I think that's like the more common thing.
That's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think in the chat.
Okay, this was like a complete fucking waste of time, though. Like, listening him rambling about how he's saying but not saying again that coronavirus was created by Big Pharma to gain profit. But he can't say that because YouTube will censor it, so he put those fucking disclaimer bullshits around them. He sees a risk of working with the virus so we can preemptively be ready if an outbreak comes. But he doesn't see a risk in giving Russia parts of another nation because there's a threat of a nuclear weapon usage. It's ironic how this guy sees narratives only on one side. Just saying, not saying.